All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started here. Thank you so much for joining us for our Future Engineering Applicants webinar. Although this webinar is geared towards future engineering applicants, if you applied for fall 2023, please feel free to stick around, ask any questions you have in the Q&A, and we will be having a student panel at the end of this presentation. So you can definitely ask our current students some questions if you have any. So you can also email enginfo@uwaterloo.ca for any specific or additional questions that we weren't able to address today. But otherwise, let's jump right into things. All right, so the University of Waterloo acknowledges that much of our work takes place on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples, and our main campus is situated on the Haldeman Tract, which was the land that was granted to the Six Nations, and it includes 6 miles on either side of the Grand River. Our active work towards reconciliation takes place on our campuses through research, learning, teaching, and community building, and all of that is centralized within our Office of Indigenous Relations. So I encourage you all to visit nativeland.ca to learn more about the land that you occupy and to learn more about how you can build reconciliation. So to introduce myself, my name is Abby Eadington and my pronouns are she, her. I am the undergraduate recruitment coordinator for the Faculty of Engineering, and I will be leading the presentation today as well as leading our wonderful student panel after the presentation. So first and foremost, what is engineering? In general, engineering and the practice of engineering means any act of planning, designing, composing, evaluating, advising, reporting, directing, or supervising, or managing any of the foregoing that requires the application of engineering principles and concerns the safeguard of life, health, property, economic interest, the public welfare, or the environment. So all of those words to say, really engineering is involved in a wide facet of activities and things that go on that make our society function, that make our world function. And really engineering is a part of everything that you look at. So the answer to what is engineering is basically everything and a lot of things. So engineering design is a process of devising a system, component, or process to meet desired needs and specifications within constraints. So it's all about problem solving, finding solutions, being creative, making decisions, and within all of that, using basic sciences, mathematics, and engineering sciences, and applying those to convert resources into solutions. So if all of that sounds exciting to you, engineering might be the right discipline for you. As far as what programs we offer here at the University of Waterloo, we have 14 engineering programs as well as 1 architectural studies program. So our architectural studies program is offered by the School of Architecture, which is situated in our Cambridge satellite campus. And then the other 14 engineering programs are all within our main campus. As you can see, the engineering disciplines are very wide stretching, and depending on your interests and what is motivating to you in engineering, depending on all of that, discovering which program is right for you can be a little bit tricky. So it's great to attend sessions like these, ask questions, and I am seeing some questions coming to our Q&A. So if you do have any questions, please do remember to submit them in our Q&A. So all of our programs are direct entry programs. And what that means is when you start in your first year, you will be starting directly into your program of choice, whether it be nanotechnology engineering or mechatronics engineering or any of our other programs. You'll be taking discipline-specific courses starting right on the first day of classes. You'll be having 24/7 access to classrooms, labs, and our Center of Student Design Center. Our direct entry programs also include small class sizes using a cohort system. So cohort system means that when the group of students that you start with in your first year, you'll travel with that same group of students all the way up until your final year. And that's really great because it means small class sizes and a greater sense of community. And there are opportunities for academic research and industrial experience. So this is really important to keep in mind when it comes to selecting the program that you'll be applying to. Because if you do get accepted, you'll be going directly into that program, and that makes it very difficult to transfer between programs. So do definitely do your research on which program is right for you. That being said, how do you choose a program? So as I said, doing your research is going to be essential. So we have our engineering program compatibility quiz, which I definitely recommend taking just to get a general idea of maybe some programs that might be compatible with your interests and things like that. So you can scan that QR code if you're interested in taking that quiz and really just look at that quiz as a starting point to then go research the programs that might be a good fit for you. So you can view our Choosing an Engineering Program webinar video on YouTube as well, and that's going to be a really great guide on all of our programs and how to choose them. You can also connect with current students through Eng chats, and that's talking, let's say if you're interested in nanotechnology engineering, you can talk to a current nano student and get their perspective on the program and what they like about it and what makes them a good fit for their program. And you can have multiple Eng chats as well. So if you're interested in multiple programs, or if you're considering multiple programs, definitely schedule as many as you'd like or as many as you need to get a good sense of what it's like to be in that program. And then lastly, exploring our program web pages. We have web pages with lots of detailed information about all of our programs. So clicking through those can be a great way to get a sense of which programs might interest you. All right, so a lot of you might be wondering how co-op works. Co-op is one of our big draws to engineering at Waterloo, and it's a great way to get experience and explore different career opportunities. So as far as how engineering co-op works, as I said, it gives you an idea and a way to explore different career opportunities while progressing through your degree. And by the end of your degree, you'll have gained 2 years of practical full-time work experience. So basically how it works is you'll be switching between academic terms where you'll be studying full-time and co-op terms where you'll be working full-time. And you'll be alternating through those throughout your degree in order to gain those 2 years of practical full-time work experience and apply some of the things that you're learning in the classroom to the outside real world. You also get to acquire professional contacts and build your reputation, which is really valuable upon graduation. A lot of students will receive job offers from their past co-op employers right from the time that they graduate. You get a competitive advantage upon graduation, being able to enter the workforce. You already have built your network up a little bit and gained some work experience. A lot of students will use it to pay for their education. All of our co-op terms are paid, and you can earn from about 8,500 to 21,000 per term in Canada. So a lot of students will use co-op as one way to pay for their education. In order to graduate in any of our engineering programs, you must complete 5 required co-op terms. And you can work at over 1,500 international co-op placements each year. So we do have international co-op opportunities if that's something that would interest you. So speaking of after graduation, you might be wondering where students might go after receiving their engineering degree from Waterloo. Really, the answer to that is a wide variety of places. Some folks may go on to be engineers, some might be CEOs or founders of their own businesses. A lot of our students do have a passion for entrepreneurship, and that's something that we help to foster throughout your degree. You might be a consultant, a product manager, software developer, director of operations, researcher, all sorts of different jobs. I know a lot of people are interested in artificial intelligence, so some people might be doing robot design, technical writer, IT specialist, all sorts of things that you can do with your engineering degree. And you can kind of explore these different fields throughout your co-ops to see which would be the right fit for you. And approximately 95% of graduates are employed within 6 months of graduating. So there is a very high rate of employment after graduation. So beyond all of your academics and your work experience, it's also important to consider what the student experience will be like while you're here at Waterloo. So rest assured, you will be doing more than just studying. So there's lots of ways to get involved when it comes to within the faculty. So within engineering, you can become a student ambassador. There's the Waterloo Engineering Endowment Fund that you can get involved with by being a teaching assistant or a volunteer. The Iron Warrior newspaper, there's lots of stage bands or engineering plays that you can get involved with if you're interested in music or theater. And then there's also a Women in Engineering group. There's also lots of other clubs within the university itself. So there's over 200 clubs here at the University of Waterloo, and there's always the option to start your own club if we happen to not offer the club that you're interested in. We also have lots of intramural athletics and of course varsity athletics as well, if that's something that interests you. We have music groups, drama productions, Imprint, which is our campus newspaper, as well as the Waterloo Undergraduate Student Association. And on top of all of that, we also have our, of course, Engineering Society, which is a huge involvement for a lot of students to get involved. They run all sorts of campus events and great way to meet new people, get involved, and of course, de-stress. On top of all of those wonderful student groups, we also have our student design teams. So design teams are a great way to do things that you love to do, design new things, try new things, meet new people, network, and compete in international competitions. So we have over 20 teams to join. Joining is pretty simple. There's no experience required, and how much time you commit to your team is really up to you. Amazing collaboration opportunities. There's teams within teams. You really get to meet a great group of people. And I do know that some of our student representatives that we'll be having a panel at the end with, they are part of design teams. So if you have questions about that, they're great people to ask. And then there's a list of some of the ones that we have. So we have Midnight Sun, Concrete Toboggan, Rocketry, Formula Electric, Steel Bridge Team, and more. Lots of teams to get involved in. So how does the admissions process work? So if you're looking at applying for future years, you might be wondering, when will I apply? How will I apply? Lots of questions like that. So as far as how to apply, applicants will apply to the Ontario University's Application Centre, or UAC. Applicants can only indicate one Waterloo engineering program. So you do need to pick just one engineering program to apply to on your OUAC form. And then on top of that, if you do have another program that you would be interested in, you can indicate an alternate program choice on your admissions information form. And we will talk more about what that is in a minute. But important to note that biomedical engineering and software engineering are not available as alternate program choices. So if you're interested in either biomedical or software, you do need to indicate that on your OUAC form as your one Waterloo engineering program. Also important to note that you can apply to both an engineering program as well as architectural studies program. So if you're interested in architectural studies, but also architectural engineering, you can apply to both as two separate choices on your OUAC form. A few important reminders. So the admissions information form, which I mentioned previously, it is required for admission and scholarship consideration. So when you go to apply, you do need to complete the AIF. It's not required for all of the faculties here at Waterloo, but it is required for all engineering programs. And really the reason is for that is that we want to consider your application based on more than just your grades. So that will give you an opportunity to show us who you are beyond your grades. There's also an online video interview. This interview is highly recommended for admission, but it's not required for admission. But it is required for some entrance scholarships. So it is a good idea to complete it, and really there's no downsides to completing it. It will never take away from your admission score, it will only add to it. So it's a good idea to complete it, and we highly recommend it. Waterloo Engineering does not give admissions preference to first choice applicants, so it doesn't, we won't be looking at which choice you rank us in OUAC. We won't be giving any admissions preference. Admissions decisions are also made in 2 rounds for our engineering programs. So the first round happens at the end of March, and our final round is in the middle of May. So do take note that our admissions decisions do go out a little bit later than some of the other faculties here at Waterloo or some other universities. And that's really because our admissions professionals will be reviewing all of the applications in depth before making decisions. And it's also important to keep in mind that admissions processes may change. So let's say you're looking at 2024 admission or 2025 admission. These processes might change. So definitely keep that in mind and be sure when the time comes for you to apply to Waterloo, you take a look at any updates or changes that have been made, because they are always subject to change. All right, as far as required courses go, we do require advanced functions, calculus and vectors, chemistry, physics, English, and then we'll be looking at one other 4U or 4M course, whichever one is your best one. So Beyond these required courses, you just need to take one other 4U or 4M course. And if you take multiple 4U or 4M courses, then we'll be looking at whichever one you get the highest grade in. Beyond those 6 courses, we won't be looking at other courses. A minimum final grade of 70% is required in each of these courses. And then it's important to note that applicants to software engineering are required to have demonstrated programming experience. So if you're interested in software engineering, be sure to keep that in mind. And we have some information available on our website as well, which kind of goes into some more depth about different options for what that programming experience can look like. All right, admissions information form, which I've mentioned a few times. It's required for admission consideration. So if you don't complete it, you will not be considered for admission consideration. And as I said, it's a personal profile where you get to tell us more about you. So you get a chance to describe why you want to be an engineer. You get to list your extracurricular activities, your enrichment courses, work experiences, and volunteer experiences. You can summarize your achievements and awards. And then if you would like, you can indicate one alternate engineering program of choice other than software or biomedical engineering. So the AIF plays a significant role both in admission and scholarship decisions. So really we're looking at who you are and what you bring to Waterloo Engineering beyond your grades. So this definitely is something to put a lot of work into and make sure that you are happy with how you represented yourself on your AIF, because it is something that our admissions representatives will be looking through thoroughly, and it will play a significant role in whether you will be offered admission. As I said, there's also a video interview, so completion is highly recommended for admission, and it is required for some entrance scholarships. The interview consists of 2 pre-recorded questions requiring a verbal response. So typical job interview questions, you can kind of just search up some typical job interview questions, and those will be sort of what the questions will be like for your video interview. You'll have a limit on the time that you'll get to prepare to answer your question, and then a limit on how long your response can be. You'll only get 1 attempt to respond. And then your responses to those questions will be assessed and scored. And then whatever your score is, it can add to your admission score. You can complete it at your own convenience, so long as you complete it by the deadline. And we do encourage you to treat it like a job interview, so just informally and doing your best to answer the questions professionally. All right, when it comes to scholarships, there are a couple of entrance scholarships. So Waterloo entrance scholarships, there is an unlimited number that are awarded, and it's based on your admissions average. Those will be valued between 1,000 and 4,000, and they're just automatically awarded when admitted. We also have our specific engineering entrance scholarships. There's a limited number of these, so approximately 85. It's based on your admissions average, your AIF, and your interview. And it's valued between 1,000 and 18,000, and it will be awarded during the final admission round, which again takes place in mid-May. All right, so I recognize that I just threw a lot of information your way. So definitely I've seen some questions coming through on in our Q&A, but if you do have any questions about everything that I just talked about, please do put it into the Q&A and we'll be happy to answer those for you. Otherwise, we'll be moving into our student panel. So I'm going to invite Nicole, Michael, and Elizabeth to turn your cameras on and join us now. And I'll just allow everyone a chance to introduce themselves first and foremost. And if you do have any questions for our student panelists, please do put them in the Q&A and indicate that you would like one of our panelists to answer it. So we'll get started with Nicole, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Cool. All right. So my name's Nicole. I'm in my last term of civil engineering. Hopefully I'll be graduating in a month or so. And my pronouns are she, her, they, them.
Amazing. Thank you. And Michael, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yep. So I'm Michael. I'm going into my 3rd year of nanotech engineering, currently on co-op within the Waterloo region. And my pronouns are he, him.
Great. And Elizabeth?
Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth. My pronouns are she, her. I am also on co-op right now and will be going into 3A of systems design engineering in the summer.
Amazing. Thank you. So I think I have a question that I'll just ask all of you, maybe starting with Nicole. Do you want to share a little bit about your co-op experiences, what it was like for your very first term, and maybe what your favorite co-op experience has been?
Sure. All right. So the first co-op is usually the most intimidating. It's when everyone is very much fixated on actually just getting a co-op. I was very lucky to get a co-op during my first round, so my stress was very much alleviated. Then COVID hit and everything was online. When the school went online, I believe for those two co-op terms that overlap with that, I was actually a WEEF TA, which helped a lot. My favorite co-op term would probably be two co-op terms ago, so that was my fifth one. Basically, in civil engineering, you can choose to focus on structural engineering, which is what I want to do, particularly earthquake engineering. So I was able to work with AirUp, which is a consulting firm. They're very big in Europe, a little well known in Canada, but I was able to do some earthquake engineering analysis, which is beyond the scope of my undergraduate studies. And I was able to design a building through that.
That's so cool. Thank you so much for sharing. Michael, do you want to share some of your experiences?
Yep, for sure. So currently on my fourth co-op. So my first co-op, um, I worked as a regulatory engineer with a company that makes brain surgery devices. So I was responsible for getting the brain surgery device into the European Union, into the US military. Second co-op, product development engineer. I built infrared heaters. So I helped design a new infrared heater for a lot of restaurants across North America, like and ski resorts like Blue Mountain. And then currently right now I'm working at Vina Medical as an optomechanical engineer, and I'm designing a new type of device to remove blood clots from the brains of stroke victims, as well as the world's smallest camera that can give you lifetime footage of what's going on in the veins and arteries. So I've had some pretty cool experiences with co-op. So yeah.
Great, thank you. That does sound very cool. Elizabeth, do you want to share your experiences?
Yeah, so what I really like about systems design is that all of my classmates and I, we definitely have a very diverse mix of what we're doing. So personally, for my first co-op, I was working as a statistical analyst with the Government of Canada, specifically Environment and Climate Change branch. So we were looking at this river and just measuring its like water flow and how the different dams along it had to be operated. So that was a really cool experience. And then for my second co-op, I worked as an applications engineer at this small startup company in Waterloo. So I really enjoyed getting a lot of hands-on experience from that. And then this past summer, I worked as a project manager in another smaller company in Toronto. And so that was a little less technical and a little more in terms of managing different aspects of the project and making sure things kept on track with the different teams. And then currently I'm working in a physics professor's lab as an electrical and mechanical technician. So we're building a open source quantum computer. And that's been really cool to see how kind of the applications of engineering cross with the more theoretical science knowledge.
Great, thank you. So our next question, maybe I'll ask Michael this one. How do you feel about being in cohorts? What is that like moving through your cohort? And yeah, if you want to share a little bit more about that experience.
Yeah, for sure. I'll say it's probably one of the best experiences with Waterloo because you really do get that sense of community because it's like a nice safety net to know that, oh, all of my friends were taking the same courses. So we can help each other out with different assignments and just make sure that we're moving together as one rather than not knowing if you're going to take the same classes as somebody else and then not understanding not understanding if who you're going to be working with and all that kind of stuff. But I'll say that, yeah, when you have a really close cohort system, it's just really awesome because we like to do really fun events with each other. Like usually at the beginning of every term, we'll have like a bonfire at the lake, which is pretty nice. So I'll say the co-op cohort experience has been really good for me. So yeah.
Great, thank you. And Nicole, I know that you're in kind of your last term now, and that means you'll be doing and participating in Capstone. So can you talk a little bit about what Capstone is and your experience with that?
All right, so capstone essentially it's your fourth year design project where at least in the civil cohort, you're just told to find a problem and to solve it. It's very much there's no box that you're put in, which can be hard at the beginning when you don't know what you want to do. But essentially you take all the tools and resources that you've learned throughout your 4 to 5 years at Waterloo and you just do something tangible with it. So for my capstone project, what we're doing is there's a municipality called Sioux Lookout, which is 300 kilometers northwest of Thunder Bay. And they have a very, very, very big housing issue there because it's very remote and it's hard to get materials up there. So what my group is doing is we're essentially creating these modular or more like panelized houses and you connect them kind of like Lego blocks. So you just have to transport all the materials there. You won't need skilled labor essentially to put them all together and then you can just unlock it and move it around if you have to.
Great, thank you for sharing. That sounds really cool. All right, Elizabeth, do you want to talk a little bit about supports available at Waterloo? Have you used any supports, academic-wise, social-wise? Yeah, just sharing some of your experiences with that.
So I think in terms of academic, systems design has an academic advisor who's in charge of helping us pick our electives and just talk us through any concerns we might have in terms of our courses. So that's been really helpful having our advisor. And then there's also within our program, we're all very close and there's a lot of upper year support. So as kind of like an in-between student, I have upper years mentors and then I also have first year mentees. So we all kind of help each other out. We talk about the classes and we share like little tips and tricks we picked up. And then also in terms of the university, there is counseling support available to students for free. So you can go in and talk to professional counselors. They also have ones that are specific to engineering students, which is a service that I have used. And I find that they're really helpful in understanding the unique pressures that we face, such as like always being on either with co-op or school. So there's definitely a lot of support there in terms of academics and just personal mental health. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much for sharing. All right, we have a question here that I might ask all of your opinions on. So an attendee is wondering, how does one actually go about picking what to get into? They're kind of thinking that the breadth of choices are really overwhelming, a bit of decision paralysis. And I'm sure when you all were applying, you kind of faced some similar thoughts and feelings. So Nicole, do you want to get started with that one?
Yeah, this one was actually it's an interesting process. So I very much base it off of I don't care how much money I make. I care about what do I want to do and not get bored because I get bored easily. So the summer before grade 12, I was watching this documentary about this it's kind of a remote village in Nepal, but for the kids to go to school in the mainland, they had to go through this treacherous river where if you think of a gondola system, that's what they use, except there's no motor. So how they got there is you have all the little kids in the sitting part of the gondola, and all the big kids they would essentially be tight roping and pushing this gondola across the river. And I thought this is extremely unsafe. It's very unnecessary that people have to die, especially kids, just to go to school. And a very simple solution would be just to build a bridge. And that's mainly the reason why I'm in civil engineering. So watching documentaries, maybe that helps.
That's great. Yeah, and kind of just seeing what you're passionate about, seeing like what you get those I guess interest in, and that's great that you were able to find that. All right, Michael, do you want to share a little bit about how you found nanotechnology engineering?
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of funny because like I actually didn't know about nanotechnology engineering until I came to the open house. Um, I just knew that I was extremely interested in chemistry, but I was also interested in like working with my hands and like doing mechanical stuff as well. So basically what I did to like distinguish between the two, because I was really torn uh, between them, was I went to the open house and I talked to uh, engineering ambassadors just to get a feel of how they thought the program was going. And then I looked at, because you can find basically the course schedule for each course or for each program online. And I basically looked through almost not just mechanical and chemical and nano, but I looked through almost every engineering program's like courses up until fourth year, and I saw what do these 4 years of courses like interest me the most. And then I realized that nanotechnology engineering was the one that those 4 years of courses suited me best. So I ended up choosing that, and I've been pretty happy. So yeah.
That's great, thank you. And we are having our March Break Open House this Saturday, so if you are able to come, you can talk to current students from all of our programs, current faculty and staff as well. If you're unable to come, I would definitely recommend looking into our Eng chats to talk to some current undergraduate students. And then, yeah, like Michael said, looking online, looking at those course descriptions and what courses are involved in each of our program and seeing if those are the things that interest you. So Elizabeth, how did you find systems design?
Um, so when I was in high school, I really enjoyed like math and science, but I also enjoyed most of my courses. So I wasn't even sure if engineering was what I'd necessarily want to go into. And I was considering other engineering programs, such as the one at UBC, which had a general first year. And I actually really liked the idea of kind of getting into engineering, but not having to pick my program immediately and seeing what different programs there were. Ultimately, why I decided systems design was because I was flipping through the University of Waterloo engineering view book, and there was this little note. It was like a little asterisk, and it was like systems design offers the most flexibility in terms of courses and choosing electives. And I was like, well, I'm not even sure if engineering is right for me. This seems like a really good idea because there's so much flexibility and electives. And that's ultimately why I chose it. And I've actually been really happy with the program. I've only had one elective so far, actually, but I've learned they mostly come in fourth year. So I'm looking forward to that and getting the chance to make my degree my own, I guess.
Great, thank you so much for sharing. All right, so another question that we have here that I might get everyone's thoughts on. Someone is wondering what are some of the challenges that they should expect to face in the engineering program at Waterloo. So if you maybe want to share some of the challenges that you've faced and your thoughts on things like that. So we'll kind of go backwards now and start with Elizabeth.
So university, I think, is a lot. There's a lot going on. I personally am from British Columbia, so I moved away from home, and I think that was a big step. Just sometimes homesickness just hits you. And so there's that, and learning to cook and clean and do your own laundry. People always make jokes about that, but I think it is true. Kind of having that freedom as a university student on top of going to class, learning the material, and also getting a co-op. So there's a lot going on. And I think what I have found works for me is just reminding myself that everyone's on their own journey. And as cheesy as that sounds, it helps me just remember that what I'm doing works for me, or finding what works for me. And trying to not care as much about what other people might be doing and just focusing on myself.
Yes, thank you for sharing. I definitely think it can be difficult to get caught up in some of a competition mindset, but it's a great idea to just focus on yourself and what you can do rather than trying to compete with everyone around you. Michael, what are some challenges that you faced?
Yeah, I think Elizabeth really hit the nail on the head there, is with adjusting to university life, moving away from home is, even though I'm from the GTA, still moving out here was a bit different, especially because I didn't move out with any of my friends. Everything was new. So really giving myself the time to adjust just to the living circumstances, but also just the increased work was a bit challenging. But one of the things that helped me get over that was just taking it a little bit easier on myself. Because if I went into the mindset that I'm going to maintain the exact same grades I had in high school, which was not smart. So once I kind of dropped that and spent, changed my mindset into just being somebody that it's well-rounded in a sense where I get good sleep, I have good friends, I keep up with doing athletics and do fun side projects along with doing school, that made life a lot easier here. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I think that's definitely a common experience coming from high school. A lot of you are very smart individuals, and you might have been top of your class in high school. And unfortunately, that might not be the case here when you come to Waterloo. And so I think, yeah, recognizing what you can do and focusing on being that well-rounded person is great. Nicole, what challenges have you faced?
I think one of the biggest ones was so I lived in Ronite Village in my first year, and I was paired up with someone that I didn't know. So I really had to work on communicating because how the floor layout is there's two beds against the wall. There's nothing separating us. So when I would turn around at nighttime, my roommate's right there, and we're very much, living, eating, breathing very, very close. So knowing and learning how to communicate, especially boundaries, because when you go home and you want to go and sleep, at least for me, my bed is very much my safe space. So there's certain things that I would like to have there or would not like to have there. So that was one of my biggest challenges. The second one would just be because I moved, similar to Michael, I am from the GTA, but I was the only one in my friend group who moved out, especially to Waterloo, and none of my friends are within arm's reach. I really had to make an effort to make new friends and maintain these friendships, even though they're not that far, but I would have to call them just for mental health sake.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing. All right, we have another question here. Is there anything that you would recommend we do during the summer to prepare for possible co-op term next year? So of course that first co-op term can be a little bit intimidating and you worry, is your resume looking good enough? So I'd love to hear from all of our panelists about what they might recommend, having been through that first co-op term, what you might recommend high school students do in their summers to prepare for that first co-op term. So we'll start with Nicole.
Honestly, volunteer. You don't necessarily have to work because transferable skills or soft skills are so important because when you all start out, you're all within the same baseline of experience when you're applying for your first co-op. So typically, from my experience, employees or employers, sorry, are very much looking at how well you can fit into the company culture. So if you're able to communicate, if you have any questions, are you the type of person to sit and dwell on it for 5 hours, or will you actually be a bit more time efficient and ask for help? So very much volunteer, polish those transferable skills and see if you can figure out what you actually like doing. Because I find that it's not enjoyable at all if you go to a co-op and you don't want to do anything that you've been tasked to do.
Great, thank you for sharing. Michael, what are your thoughts?
I'd say work on your resume early. Like I'll say that it's not something where it's like I write one and I'm done. For my first co-op, I think I made 18 versions of it. I immediately went into, or I prepared my resume for like the first day that I started, even though I was stream 8 and I was applying for co-op in the winter term, but then continuously getting it reviewed by, let's say, your parents or other people like in the field ahead of time, and even like doing practice interviews is really helpful to just get you into that mindset, because your resume will continuously need refining. But then also you can add on to like Nicole's point where you could try and get or do something any volunteering, even if it's like playing high level sports, showing that you are doing something is good, because again, transferable skills are great.
Yes, definitely. And kind of on that point of transferable skills, even if it's working at your local grocery store or something like that, you are building those transferable skills. And like Nicole and Michael both said, they're looking for that person who will be the right fit with the good communication skills, the ability to solve problems in the workplace, and like that work experience can do a lot for that. Also, when it comes to your resume, we do have our Tatum Center, which is dedicated to employment support, including co-op support. And they do resume critiques and mock interviews. So preparing your resume in advance as much as you can is a great idea. And then once you get here, you will have support with resume critiques. But if you can get it to a point where it's ready for them, that's a great idea as well. Elizabeth, what are your thoughts on what high school students can do to prepare for co-op?
I think Michael and Nicole already said some really good points on like just preparing your resume, and cover letter maybe, doing some extracurriculars. But I also think it's important to remember that this is your last summer for 5 years. So also take the time to enjoy your time with friends. You've all just graduated, it's really exciting, family, and just take a break and enjoy it, because also employers don't want burnt out students. So have a good summer is what I would suggest.
I love that advice. Yes, please don't burn yourself out before you get here. Take care of yourself. Start building those resources to take care of yourself before you come here, so that when you come here and you do face a busy schedule and a lot of new things, you have those resources and kind of that tool belt of support for yourself to take care of yourself. All right, another question that I have here. How do you combat imposter syndrome, and do you have any tips? So for those who might not know, imposter syndrome is that idea where you feel like you don't belong and you're not good enough to be here, and maybe you didn't earn your way into your program, and you shouldn't actually be here. So how do you combat that? Do you have any tips for combating it? Let's start with Michael this time.
So I'll definitely say it is a real thing. Because yeah, it's like for me, it's like I'm definitely nowhere near the top of the class. And it's like, oh, how am I in the same space as like these geniuses sometimes? But then it's like I have to realize, or like sometimes you just need to get out of your own head, like take a step back and look at it in a bigger picture, in a sense where we both made it here for a reason, because we have, or the university believes that we have the skills to do what we are doing. And just in a sense where you can find some sort of comfort in that. But not only that, like trying to get out of that headspace of comparing yourself to other students is probably like the number one thing. Because as soon as you start comparing, you can get into this really bad like wormhole of not feeling good. So really just focusing on yourself and what you're doing and being proud of what you've been able to do, because you're still here within the program, is something that's been pretty good to combat that. So yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. And definitely, if you get an offer of admission to Waterloo, you deserve to be here. And even if our programs are very rigorous, so not being the top of your class by no means that you're not a very intelligent person and belong to be here. All right, we'll go to Nicole next.
It's a great question. Usually, to stay grounded, I just talk to my friends, because, like Michael said, it's very, very prevalent when you're in a class full of just people who are smart. And now the average intelligence is, it's bumped up, and, you might be within the average. You might feel like you're below average, and it's not a good feeling, but talking to friends helps. Like Elizabeth mentioned beforehand, there are counseling services in the engineering department. We are very special and very lucky that we have our own counselors. Reach out to them. But just take the time, sit down, and really give yourself kudos for when it comes that, you made it here to Waterloo. You were chosen out of the several hundreds of people. You are here for a reason, and you will understand why later.
Yes, thank you so much. And definitely important to highlight that we do recognize that these are common feelings for our engineering students, and there are supports there for you because of that. Elizabeth, any additional thoughts for you?
I think where I've felt imposter syndrome the most is in the workplace, especially when I'm working with a lot of male coworkers. And as a female in engineering, I think I just try and remind myself that I am just as valid to be here, that I bring my own set of skills. And even if I'm not able to lift something as heavy as the other guys or reach something as high up, um, I am no less like worthy. So it's just reminding yourself and doing things that remind myself that I'm meant to be here.
Great, thank you so much for sharing that. All right, I think we'll ask another question, and I know that Michael is on the design team. So Michael, do you want to talk a little bit about your design team experience and how you've gotten involved there?
Yeah, for sure. So I am the operations manager, mechanical project manager, aerodynamics and composites lead on Midnight Sun, the team that builds solar cars from the ground up within the university. And as was previously said, it is zero experience to join. So I said, hi, I want to join the team. And they said, you're in, which is pretty nice. And if you remember what I said before, I was very interested in chemical, nano, and mechanical. So I joined Midnight Sun to interest my mechanical side of learning. And basically, um, the way that design teams are structured is that they'll get you involved even though you're a first year. It's like something where I had to design reinforcements on a chassis. I was like, I don't know how to do it, but I want to try. And they're like, okay, we'll give you the resources to teach yourself how to do it, and then you can do it. So basically, it is a lot of self-learning, and you get a lot of great mentorship from upper year students, and a lot of upper year students that are within design teams have very cool co-ops, because a lot of employers like to see people working in design teams because it is a large multidisciplinary project. So they offer great mentorship in like resume critiques and then mock interviews as well. So it's been an absolutely awesome experience and great community to be in. And so again, as in I'm in nanotech, I don't learn anything about mechanical, but as you saw, I'm like most of the mechanical leads on the team. So it really is how much effort you want to put into the team is what you're going to get out of it. So it's been an awesome experience for sure.
Great, thank you so much for sharing. Maybe I'll ask Nicole, have you been involved in any student groups or any design teams even that you'd like to share about?
Let me tell you about that. Well, in first year, as I mentioned, I get bored easily, so I need to do a lot of things when I have free time, which in first year that is like 5 hours of my week. But in terms of student design teams, right now I'm currently under Warrior Home, which is a very multidisciplinary student group where we have mechanical, electrical, architectural, civil, just a bunch of people from different programs come together building a net zero home. So there's that. I am an exec on the Steel Bridge team, which we are competing right now. We're going to Buffalo, I think, the end of this month. No, next month, to compete in the American competition. So what we do in Steel Bridge is we do exactly what our name says. We design and model a bridge, not to scale, but it's like 20 feet long, so it's still big. We design a bridge, we have to build it there. It undergoes a load test, and we have to see which one is the best. So yeah, we compete in the American competition, which this year is in Buffalo, and then the Canadian competition, it will be in Western University in London, Ontario. In terms of student groups, which are not design associated, I was also part of the Filipino Student Association in first year, which there are a lot of culturally oriented student groups at the university. So if that's very important to you, like it is for me, you have a community here. And I believe there's also the Habitat for Humanity, where essentially it's just this very big organization, but there are student chapters where you can go out onto site and help build a home.
Great, thank you for sharing. And Elizabeth, do you want to talk a little bit about some of your student involvements?
So in terms of engineering, I participate in a lot of women in engineering events. Today, actually, we have this workshop where a company called, I believe it's AutoCate is coming in, and they're doing a little bit of a workshop on showing us how to do different auto repair things, such as changing a tire or checking your oil. So I think that's really cool. And outside of engineering, I'm also on the Waterloo synchronized swimming team, and that's been really fun. For me, it was a really nice chance to meet non-engineering students because sometimes you forget that there's a whole other part of the university. And it's just been really cool to meet people in different programs, different ages, and just turn my brain off from like the technical stuff and learn something new and fun.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, we have another question here. So, which year is the hardest university year so far for all of you? So, I know we have kind of a variety of fourth year, third year. So, maybe I'll go to Nicole first since you're in fourth year. What has been the hardest year for you?
Great question. For civils, it would be, I think it's 3A. I'm pretty sure because you are taking 5 courses plus 1 elective. You're taking a total of 6 courses, it was a lot. A bit more of my time management skills really kicked in for this term, but in 3A for civils, you get to choose your technical electives, which essentially means you now can start branching out into the actual specific realms of civil engineering that you would like to do, like structural, transportation, or geological, which then was a bit more fun for me because now I was able to focus on structural and I was a bit more engaged in courses. So a lot more work, but it was more work that I was actually wanting to do.
Great, thank you for sharing. And for those who might be unfamiliar, 3A and 3B and everything like that just refers to the third year, and then 3A is the first term in third year, 3B would be the second term of first year. So in that sense, the first part of third year was kind of Nicole's trickiest year. We'll ask Elizabeth next.
I think personally, my hardest term was 2A, which was the transition from remote learning to in person. So it was that time when I was moving away from home. It was also the winter, so it was very cold and dark. So I think it was some external factors that made it difficult for me. But then our upcoming term is supposed to be very heavy in terms of our physics courses because we have both fluid mechanics and thermodynamics, and physics is not my favorite science, so we'll see how this upcoming term goes. But I think it can be like a lot of people say like, oh, this term is really hard. But my experience is there are sometimes like moving courses around, or it depends, like if you're really good at physics, you're really good at math, or if you're someone who gets affected by the weather. So it don't like fall into the trap of hearing everyone else talk about it. And if they're struggling and you're not, and thinking, why aren't I struggling? Or the other way around, and just try and find the balance that works for you.
That's very true. It can be very subjective. And I know when I was a student, summer term was always my least favorite term to be studying because I had many other things I'd rather be doing in the sunshine. So yes, very subjective. Michael, any thoughts on your least favorite year?
It's definitely third year. So 3B is just the most heavy in terms of coursework, but I think it'd be the courses that I probably enjoy the most because it's like I have 6 courses, 2 lab courses, and like a half course or something like that. So it's just insane in terms of work, but it's manageable. But 3A, my term coming up, it's just all physics. And like Elizabeth, I'm not physics savvy per se, because I have quantum mechanics and continuum mechanics and organic chemistry too, kind of. So it'll be fun. But yeah, it's a third year. A lot of the times, a lot of the upper years will say that first and second year like kind of prep for third year, because third year is where you get into like the real stuff. So a lot of the times third year is harder, but it's more interesting. So yeah.
That's very true, because sometimes the harder it gets, the more interesting it gets too. So there's kind of that trade-off as well. All right, so we have just a few minutes left in our webinar here. So maybe I'll just get everyone to go around and share some of their final thoughts, final tips for prospective applicants. So let's start with Elizabeth.
I just want to say good luck. I know there's a lot going on. It's potentially your final years of high school, so enjoy them, make some memories with your friends, but then also think about what you want to do in your future. Maybe try some extracurricular courses that will help you with your application, like maybe a coding course or something. Or if you want, like, just keep pursuing like what you're passionate about, because I think that's really important. And yeah, just talk to who you can, like if you have any engineers in your family or family friends, get to know like what it's all about. Then there's a lot of resources here with the university in figuring out like if it's the right match for you in terms of school, location, program. Yeah, so just do your research, but also have fun.
Yes, thank you so much for that. And definitely allowing your passion to lead you is a great idea. Michael, do you want to share some final thoughts?
Yeah. So to add on to what Elizabeth said, in addition, when you get to university, regardless of the program, regardless of the school, give yourself time to adjust. Like, don't be too hard on yourself. Like, take your time. It will take some time for some people. Some people might get it right away, but everybody has their own path. So make sure you give yourself enough time to adjust, and then make sure you just enjoy your time at whatever university you're going to, because I'm not going to remember like looking at my textbook all day for a test and what I got on my first test in first year. But I will remember that I went to engineering semi-formal and had a really fun time, or that I built a steel bridge and we did really well. Like, I'm building a solar car. I'm going to remember that for the rest of my life. So really making memories is something that you should also strive for, not just performing well in academics per se. So yeah.
Great, thank you for sharing. And Nicole, any last thoughts from you?
Yes, if you are still curious as to the type of co-op positions that are offered in Waterloo, it's very much a well-known thing that almost everybody in engineering has a LinkedIn. So you can just search up U Waterloo LinkedIn, then you put in the program, and you should be able to see the types of co-ops that people have done thus far. And when you do come here, maybe it's just me, but I was very hard-headed in terms of not wanting to get help, but get some help. I was a WEAF TA 2 times. So in your first year, some of your courses may potentially have teaching assistants who are hired as WEAF TAs. So they're just upper year students, but they're there. They've been hired to help you for a specific course. And as a WEAF TA, it was one of my favorite things on the job when students would just come and we just talk about their day, talk about anything, because I love listening and giving out advice if that's needed, or just talking about, I don't know, rocks, just anything. But definitely there are resources here if you do need it.
Great. Thank you so much to all of our student panelists for sharing your experiences and giving all of that insight for our prospective students. I'm sure they really appreciated it. So thank you to everyone who attended our session today. Here's just a few ways to connect with us going forward. We'll be posting the recording of this session onto the main U Waterloo YouTube account, and it will also be emailed out to all of you once it's ready. So keep an eye out for that if you'd like to review the recording. And yeah, definitely connect with us on socials and things like that. If you have any additional questions that we weren't able to answer today, please do email enginfo@uwaterloo.ca for any admissions questions. If you'd like to connect with one of our student ambassadors, a current undergraduate engineering student, you can register for an Eng chat. Really great way to connect with them. And then of course, there's our live online chats as well. Just go to uwaterloo.ca/futurestudents/chats. So thank you all so much again for attending this webinar, and I hope to see you all at Waterloo soon.